do we celebrate somebody who failed to do his job? Thank
It's a
you,
valid
over and
point.
out.
It's a valid point. You don't celebrate Howard Wilkinson, do you? Um, Hello and welcome back to the What the Falk Sunderland review show as we mull over a rather dull 0-0 draw against QPR. After the relative euphoria of the past few weeks, 10-man Sunderland dug out a well-earned draw against Marty Cifuentes, which is quite difficult to say if you're not Spanish. Excellent, got a nod of the head there. But a few of the lads have joined me to run over a 0-0, which we haven't done for ages. But first and foremost, I'm joined by Ross. Ross, how are you, mate? You okay?
Aye, I'm alright. Just hope everyone can hear us over an explosion going over my head in the middle of Gated because bonfire night. Well, it's not even bonfire night, I put on Twitter how much I hate bonfire night to find out that it wasn't even bonfire night yet. Yet my windows were still fucking shaking. Sorry, it's just been one of them days, Graham. But yeah, other than that, I'm quite well.
Grim folks night. Lee, how are you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm not too bad, mate. I'm canny. Just normal Saturday, and it's just chilled out. I'm alright.
Aye, not too bad. I feel like you haven't been on for ages. When were you
I
last on?
haven't. Dunno. We probably won, so it's my fault we drew today.
To be fair, you're probably like the Leo Yeldo. We just rush you in when we're really fucking desperate. Like,
Oh,
and
thanks, mate. I
want to
love you
go,
too.
want to go five at the back. Oh, get Lee in. Um, Leah, I'll stay with you because, like, we've been jovial and I'm still jovial, to be honest, still relatively jolly after the past few weeks. We're still top and all that kind of stuff, but today was different. Different kind of performance, a different kind of feeling after the game and during the game. How are you feeling? Obviously, it's like just after 10, like you've had a bit of time to kind of digest it a bit.
Then we weren't our best, but I think I can't remember who put it in the group chat, but we lose that game last season, and possibly the season before that we probably get beat there. So it shows how far we've come and how well they're actually getting coached for a change, like how defensively resilient we are. Even when he did bring on Leo Hielda, for like the last 5 or 6 minutes or so, I QPR aren't the best side in the world, but we didn't look threatened, if that makes sense. Other than that header from Jimmy Dunn from 6 yards out, we didn't look threatened at all. So it shows how far they've come and obviously just how well Rangers has got them organised, really.
Talked an awful lot about how good like we've looked at attacking wise. Like Riggy's had a lot of praise, Jobe's had a lot of praise. But again, today was maybe a performance where you've seen how good we are defensively, like how good our defensive structure is. And it's quite boring to be like, how good is our defensive structure? It's like the time when you go to work and someone goes, well, you got a health and safety course to go on. You're like, oh shit. Like you're not really excited for it. No one's really excited for defensive structure. No one's really in it for defensive structure. I mean, there will be some perverts out there, but I'm not one of them. But we have got a good defensive structure, which is a big positive, especially when your backs are against the wall and whether you're playing second bottom or you're playing second top. Like when you go down against 10 men away from home and you've got a good portion of the game to play, you keep a clean sheet. You look at the highlights from them. There's the Jimmy Dunn header, which you touched on before. There's nothing much else. We're relatively comfortable, and that all comes down to structure and being able to adapt to something different that we needed to do that we haven't needed to do at all this season, apart from like 7 or 8 minutes with Dan Neil against Burnley. So, and we also didn't concede there. I think it's 8 clean sheets and 13. So, look, not the most sexy thing to talk about defensive structure, but 100% agree. I think we've been really, really good today defensively and shown a different side to us. But Ross, make it a bit more sexy than defensive structure. Tell me how you feel about today.
It was one that I could see coming because I was the pessimist in the group, really, wasn't I? Not getting carried away. I did listen to the podcast that you all did last week, and it was all very giddy, like, and I was buzzing after the Oxford game.
Mate, I
But
was
I always,
smashed. I was
aye,
smashed.
a very drunk podcast. This one's probably the soberest podcast. This is like the come down the day after. Imagine if you listen to the podcast back to back, you'd be like, oh God, has someone died? But no, nobody's died. But at the
Yeah.
same time, Jake Clark Salter, it was, wasn't it? He died because he bottled it. Um,
What?
The defender, QPR defender, is it Clark Salter who played for us?
I don't want to remember that, to be honest, but he
Aye,
did.
he was known for doing one thing, and that was nearly killing Traore at Borough. And he
Oh,
sent
you
him like
remember
doing
that?
backflips. Aye,
Fair
one of the
play to
worst
him, to
tackles
be
I've ever
honest.
seen. Aye, but anyways, back to it. I just felt like when I seen QPR got a 0-0 draw away to Burnley, I was like, that probably is not a good thing for us because they clearly did something different there and it's worked. And I feel like I'm sure it was the centre midfielder who came in the day. I can't remember his name, but he came in for the Burnley game and he did really well. And then I think he was their best player on the pitch today. So you look at their last two results, 2 points off us and Burnley. They probably have turned a corner because I rate their manager. I'm not going to try and say his name because I'll fuck it up. But I think he did a good job there, and he had them playing decent football. He's the guy you had on the preview show alluded to. He's probably been a bit hard done by the fact that the striker, they're a bit like us last season. He's got no strikers, and you could tell that mind when we were quite content. I think from 10, 15 minutes left to go, all right, then we'll be happy with a point here. Let's just see what they can give us. And they had nothing. They had absolutely nothing. And it reminded me of us away to Swansea last season when Swansea went down to 10 men. And Swansea were just like sitting in going, all right, then, come on, then, come and have a go. And we were just like, we'll have the ball. We'll just have the ball. Because we didn't have a focal point through the middle. And I know we defended really well. I was a bit not disappointed. I'm not disappointed at all. It's a good point away from home in the circumstances, but our attacking players, even when it was 11v11, didn't impose ourselves on the game enough for me, and we didn't. I feel like we were about to step it up. Like it felt like we were coming into the game more when Jobe got sent off, but at the same time, we didn't really. It just didn't. It didn't feel very fluid today, which is such a shame considering how, especially going forward, we've been so fluid and we didn't really look like today at any stage going, oh, we can win this. You know what I mean? It always felt like it was in the balance to me, and that's probably even the games we've lost against Watford and Plymouth. There's been parts of the games going where I've went like, go on, we can go win this now. Whereas today was probably the first time I thought, a point's probably a really good result.
I felt like Roberts, Mundle, and Wilson were all like below what they have been like all season this season. And it's not to say they're necessarily bad. They're just, as you said, they weren't really fluid. And I mean, Mundle's up against Jimmy Dunn, who's like he's played in the championship for a while. I know he wasn't great for us in League One, but like the same with Jay Clark Salter. They're both obviously a lower end championship, so they can put in a performance. But you're right. I don't think we were very fluid. I thought Wilson should have scored his chance. I think he snatched it a little bit. It would have been a lovely goal if he connected with it because it was a great two touch and it goes in the bottom corner. But I would have preferred him just to take an extra second just to bang it in the bottom corner and actually take his time. But like I can't complain too much about Wilson. And I think ultimately it goes back to what you said before about the game. There's going to be games in the season where you sneak a 1-0 win. Hull, I think, would be probably a big one where another day that would be a 0-0 and you don't score. Well, last season that might have been a 1-0, whereas like this season that's a 0-0 against all right, second bottom. They've only won one game. I personally think QPR will be fine. I think they've got enough about themselves and they've got a decent manager that can organise the team enough to get points at some point. They're not going to blow anyone up, but I think they'll do a job and they'll do enough to stay up. Whereas other teams, I think, will falter. But on another day, you concede. There's times we've seen over the past two seasons before this one where we've gone down to 10 men and we haven't just really coped. I know it's been against the likes of Middlesbrough last season and Swansea a couple of seasons ago, who are predominantly passing teams that keep the ball. But I do feel like, regardless, in other circumstances, that might have been a 1-0 to QPR. So you've got to take the point and move on with it. It keeps like the unbeaten run going. It's not the win that we wanted before the game, but let's not turn our nose up at a very, very good point. Lee, the big talking point of the game is evidently because there's been no goals, Jobe's red card. I feel like I'm asking a daft question here, but any complaints with that one, Lee?
Nah, he's overrun the ball and he's lunged in. He's caught him like on his shin. At least, probably if you look back say 10, 15 years ago, might get given as a yellow card, but as soon as he made the tackle, I was like, he's gone.
Yeah, it's a red.
It didn't need the Queen's Park Rangers players' reaction to it, which was me only like gripe with it. It didn't need it because I think even Jobe knew as soon as he made the tackle, he was gone. Yeah, no complaints over the red card at all. And as you see, left us a bit short. And as Ross says, I thought we were just coming into the game as before he got sent off. And with
Such a
11 v
good
11 in the
player.
second half, I think we lifted our game. But no complaints for me. It's definitely a red card.
Nah, me neither. And I think like you're right in what you say about Joe. When you watch him, he kind of puts his hands up as if to be like, I know, like okay. And he's to be fair to Joe, he stays on the pitch and makes sure the lad's okay. I don't think he's meant it intentionally. I think anyone who maybe doesn't watch Jobe every week might think he did, but I think we watch Jobe every week and we know that sometimes some of his tackles are hard. They're with force. He means to do it. We've seen his brother's done similar with similar sort of tackles. They've got a real attitude where they want to win the ball and they want to win it well. He's mistimed it today. It does happen. It's a deserved red card, like without any shadow of a doubt. I'm assuming you agree with me on that, Ross. There's no complaints about it, is there really? It's a red.
No, I totally agree. Mind you, it was probably one of the only decisions the referee got right. I know this obviously it wouldn't have altered the game much, but he just did. Aye, just another championship referee in it.
I gave up on them, mate, to be honest. Like, I just who'd want to be a referee? And some people say that as like a pity thing, but like on a serious note, I just think, do you know when they say goalkeepers have got to be like a bit mental to be a goalkeeper? Like, what kind of personality do you have to want to be a referee? I just cannot understand it. So I'd rather like I don't know whatever the worst job in the world is. I'd rather do that. I just don't get it. Like I don't think they make their lives easier either because I think there's not one good referee in this country in any division. And when I say country, I mean the United Kingdom. I don't just mean England. But yeah, no complaints about that. The biggest concern for us, obviously, Lee, is that I think we might see Jobe missing for 3 games. We're definitely going to see him missing for 1. I know there's some sort of like thing behind it where like if it's not deemed as malicious, but I just don't think you'll get away with that. I think it looks bad. It's a poor tackle. It's not malicious, but he could have quite easily broke the lad's leg. If I'm completely honest, it's a poor tackle. So that's him missing for what? Preston, Coventry, and who we got after Coventry again?
Is it not Millwall?
Yeah, Millwall. I think he's been our best player, Lee. I think he's been our player of the season. I think everything that we do goes through him. So it's a really, really big miss. Like, but how big of a miss is he going to be? Because we're stocked in that area with midfielders that are people like that can replace him, but there's not anyone quite like what Joe offers, is there?
Exactly. You like took words right out of my mouth there. We haven't got anyone who can play like him and offer what he's got, which is like a powerhouse type midfielder. I know you could probably slot Alan Brown in there as the 2, and he'd do an adequate job and play someone in the 10, whether I don't know who it'll be. But and they do an adequate job, but I don't think they'd impact the game as much as Jobe has. However, I do think we have the options there where kind of like where obviously with Dan Ballard, his injury where he's not been missed. I think we have adequate cover, whether it be playing like Aaron Connolly as a second striker in the number 10 or Riggy gets back fit or whatever. I think we have enough to see us through the next 3 games for Jobe to get back fit. But I'm saying that's in hindsight. I hope we don't. I hope we don't miss him at all. But as I say, it's where you show signs of the recruitment, what type of squad we have, and when your big players are missing. Obviously, it's worked all right so far. When Brown got his injury and obviously Ballard got his injury. So let's just hope it continues with Jobe's suspension.
That's the biggest thing you touched on before. There's not really much that's a direct replacement for Jobe in the way that he plays. I mean, there was a bit in the first half today where there was like 2 lads converged on me. You just done like a Zinedine spin around them, and I was just like, just playing with so much confidence. Like he'll be as disappointed as anyone that he's basically buggered it up for himself, not just for like potentially winning the day, also the game's going on. And look, that's sometimes what happens with 19-year-olds. He'll learn from it, and I think you could see in his face he understood it was maybe the wrong decision to lunge in the way that he did. He's a competitor. I don't think he's a dirty player. He never has been. But that's 4 yellows and now a red for him. We're going to miss him 3 games. You've got options there. But the options, there are options. It'll be different, Ross, but who do you bring in? Like I know the obvious choice is Riggy's being fit because it looks like he's going to come back. According to what Reggie Lebris has said, do you just put Brown in there and just tell him to play the Jobe role, or do you need to have something a bit different?
No, I think if Riggs fit, he gone straight in there. Pretty straightforward for me. If he's fit, you've got 2 games before the international break, and then if you have to do, obviously it'll be a 3-game ban, so then they'll be fresh again for the week back against Millwall. Yeah, if that's the way it is, I think it's got to be done. Again, the dynamic changes, but the dynamic changed when Dan Neil was suspended. The dynamic changed when Rig went on the wing. You know what I mean? And then it wasn't there today. So no, I'm quite confident that Brown can do an adequate job. And to be fair, Brown's never had a run of games for us until now. So he's probably thinking, right, this is my opportunity to show what I'm about here as a centre midfielder, and what better place to start for him in like getting 2 games on the bounce than going back to his old club on Wednesday night. So I'm sure he'll be well and truly up for that because he didn't play in the League Cup game. So yeah, and we always say whenever we play against somebody who's just left us, oh, they're gonna score, they're gonna score. You know they're gonna score. So cute Preston fans will be thinking exactly the same on Wednesday again. Oh, but your Brown scores a day. You know, it's just natural, isn't it? So
Yeah.
the one thing I was surprised at was when we were looking to play on the counter attack, it was Conley who got the nod ahead of Mayenda. I know he might just be protecting Mayenda, thinking, "Oh, we might need him on Tuesday." But the one thing Mayenda is quite good at is like explosive pace in behind, a bit like Isidore, especially on the last man. And I think the one thing that you could give Mayenda his props for was, although he scored in 2 games, so I'm counting the Portsmouth game because Brown absolutely robbed him. But the main thing that really impressed me about him this year when he played was how he brought players into the game, like holding the ball up, linking up well. And I felt like at the time he might have been the better option to hold the ball up and link play up more. So it does make me think maybe there may be a train of thought of giving Mundell a rest too, because he looked absolutely wrecked today. I know I'm going on a bit of a tangent, but like little things like that I'm just thinking, with him not coming on, is there a plan? You know how we're talking about the midfield. It might not just be the midfield that changes.
I was going to ask that. Like, do you think, because there's Alexis to come in as well, who, we've bought for, as far as reports are concerned, decent enough money compared to what we've brought in recently. And then, look, I think it's a while away yet before Samid comes in, but, Ballard can't be a million miles away. There is options there to change some things, and we're into like our third 3-game week. I know we get a bit of a rest with internationals and stuff, so there's not a desire where we need to change the team up. But I think we were worried about Jobe or Rig or Hume getting suspended for quite a while because they're all on 4 yellow cards and have been for a few weeks. As it is, it's Jobe that's going to be missing for the 3 games because of that. But the discussion around Jobe and who comes in, as you say, will probably overshadow in a little bit whether Reggie Lebris considers changing other things there as well. But he doesn't seem the tinkering type. I have the feeling he'll keep things relatively the same, with maybe the one surprise being Alexis at some point, because it would be nice to see what he's got to offer, because at the minute we don't know whatsoever, do we, Ross, really?
Yeah, I agree. Like the Alexis one's quite strange because if he's not ready to play for the first team, it would make more sense for me that he was the one getting minutes in the 21s. But then there must be a reason why they're keeping him there. That's one thing I was a bit disappointed in. I'm glad you mentioned it on the podcast that he probably should have been given minutes against Oxford just to get him on the pitch, get a feel for it. Yeah, there might be a wild card. You might just think on Tuesday, right? It's your time. Get yourself in there, son, mate. Make a name. You know, he hasn't been afraid to like just chuck people in for the first start. Like didn't Wilson didn't play up front for us once. He played on the wing when he came off the bench, and then all of a sudden wafted away. It was like, there you go, you're up front, Wilson, and he hasn't looked back. So, yeah, I'm hopeful that he can make an impact. But the one thing I would say is I think I would be very surprised, especially away from home at Preston, if he chucks him in the deep end. But he is hoping. But is it worth mentioning about Adil Aushish as well? Because I know he's clearly out of favour, the fact that he didn't even get on the bench today and some youngsters did, but let's be honest, it's clearly something off the field that's causing this issue, isn't it? Because if we needed a centre midfielder or somebody to play the 10 role, especially the fact that he played all pre-season in that role, he would surely, and he played I'm sure he played the first couple of games off the bench as well. He would surely be in contention now. So it's got to be disciplinary or something off the field.
I'm not, because the obvious answer to the Aushish thing. I mean, I've got to be honest with you, but I'm not bothered about. Like, I know some people think he's all right. I personally don't. I'm not a fan. I'm comfortable with him not playing in a younger kid like Harrison Jones being on the bench ahead of him. I think you get about probably the same effect as you would from a young and experienced player as the Abdullah Bar, who, in my opinion, has never progressed from the first day he got here. Aushish, I'm a bit different on. Like, look, do I think he should be playing every week? No, but at the start of the season, would I have said he would have been someone that would have put in the squad? But then Harrison Jones is on the bench today, like ahead of him. The obvious answer with Aushish is that it was Lebris that sold him at Lorient to Sunderland, which means he didn't rate him or he doesn't fit into his system. I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that Aushish's work off the ball is maybe not where it needs to be for a Lebris team. Because I think on the ball he's tidy enough that we've seen flashes of things that he can offer. But if he's putting Harrison Jones on the bench, then I think that says an awful lot. But yeah, look, there's decisions to be made, and if you look at the bench today, there's a couple of players that you could potentially see coming in. You've got Mayenda, Yelder's spoke before about him getting minutes, and I know he hasn't really covered himself in glory, but you never know. That he seems to be a bit more settled now. He's not in a team devoid of confidence. That might change. You've got Tommy Watson on the bench that could come on, maybe give Mundle a rest, maybe not at Preston, but maybe against Coventry. So there is options, but I think there's no doubt in that Jobe's an absolutely massive miss. Look, it's something I haven't brought up, and I have no intel on this whatsoever. I wish I did, because I'd just tell everyone. But Lee, we're talking about squad depth and stuff like that. Riggy today, unwell, not able to play. Jobe then sent off. Thankfully, Riggy's okay, and it looks like Riggy's able to come back next week for the game. So we're not actually that short. We've got Alexis and all this kind of stuff. But there's been a lot of chat about Jordan Henderson. Let's not beat around the bush. Not really talking about the game, but I thought I might as well bring it up. It's quite a split, I think, on Henderson, maybe 60-40 in favour. But where do you stand on if we could bring Champions League winner Jordan Henderson back to Sunderland at 34? Is it a move that you would be comfortable with?
Yeah, of course. You can't really turn it down for what he's achieved in football. He's an experience in football. It all depends on how much money he's going to be on for being really fourth or fifth choice.
Pink slice. Give him pink slice. You love that.
But if we're still at the top end of the league, a player with the experience of Jordan Henderson arguably sees you through, even if he doesn't play, because he's that voice in the dressing room. He keeps everybody organised and like everyone level-headed when it is going really, really well. But make sure we don't get our heads get low when obviously we falter. And look, people have been crying out for experience in that middle of the park since Corey Evans have left. So really, you cannot really say no to a Premier League and Champions League winning captain, in my opinion. Regardless of when he went over the other side of the world and did all that he did that. But for where we are, you can't really say no to a player like Jordan Henderson.
I think I kind of spoke my piece before with it. When it comes to the moral side of it, I'll be honest, I have a really difficult time with that for my own personal reasons and my own identity. I have a really, really strong opposition to what he did and how it was done. If I take that out of the equation completely, I I would feel so much more confident that someone could get promoted when, Ricky needs a rest, Daniel gets suspended, Jobe gets suspended. If Jordan Henderson could just slot in. Doesn't really matter what I think about what he did when it comes to him getting on the pitch. He's evidently, in my opinion, still a step above what you see in the Championship. I mean, I'm sure Nigel Rio-Coker still plays in the Championship somewhere, and he still offers something probably, but he doesn't for the record. But you know what I mean. I just think you look 2 years ago at the World Cup, and Jude spoke an awful lot about how he helped him. He's very, very highly respected by footballers in the game, and yeah, look, I have huge moral issues with the decision he made and his response to the criticism of it, and I still do, and I still will, and I probably always will not have a like of him because of that. But as a footballer, like, it just makes total sense. And I think, if we were to have the same question I had before and said, Ross, what do we do? Jobe's injured and Riggy's not well, and Alan Brown is on 4 yellow cards. If you've got the option of Jordan Henderson there, you go, oh, well, fantastic. But again, he's only going to be getting the one bar. I'm not offering him any more than that. He's not allowed. He's 40 grand anymore. He's had his fill. I've got off on a bit of a tangent here, Ross, but like, just because it's been bandied about a bit and we're talking about midfielders and strength and depth, from a football perspective, it feels like a bit of a no-brainer, I think.
Definitely. No, I agree. If it's feasible, because let's be honest, we've got this model and they've proved for years now that they're not going to fuck with it just for one player.
And I wouldn't want to splash out huge wages. I mean, that is a big stumbling point, but it's not the same as the Defoe situation, who was 40 when we signed him. Also a move that I canvassed for, but bearing in mind I was watching League One football and desperate.
Yeah, we had some dark times back then, which clouded our judgment. Where this one we're a bit more stable, I'd argue. But again, I feel like you've got to remember he's playing European football this year for Ajax. I know it's only the Europa League, but he's still playing European football for Ajax.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he'd be a brilliant signing.
Yeah.
I think he's quality in the level he's at now. Probably getting talked down a bit too much. Like, as you say, he was one of the best England players of that World Cup in Qatar 2 years ago.
18 months, give or take.
Yeah, and he was. To be fair, I think that's what the big shock was when he moved to Saudi, because he was actually playing all right. So it wasn't as if like he went over there because I know they always say he didn't leave football before the football left him, as Jamie Carragher mentioned about Casemiro the other month. He actually went when his stock was quite high. So, and I feel like the Ajax move was probably one where it was just somewhere where he just someone who would take him. If I'm being a bit cruel at the time, because he just wanted to get out there once he realised he'd fucked up. And let's not forget that he had a good start to his career at Sunderland. Don't get us wrong, he was a fantastic player for us in his short time with us. But he never really had you don't really remember a Jordan Henderson moment as a Sunderland player. I remember a few goals, a few good games, but there was never a moment where you thought, wow, unbelievable. Because it even took him a couple of years to get his in his stride at Liverpool. And I just feel like it would be, for him on a personal level, the emotional attachment, if he could come here and get us promoted, it would be an unbelievable way to for him to go full circle on his story and a bit of redemption on a personal level from how he's perceived. So yeah, even I know again I went on a tangent, but I feel like once you're talking about this subject, it does take you off on a few different things. But yeah, like Lee's just said there in the chat, the Wigan game. Yeah, I get what you mean about that, but it's not one where it's one where you've had to think about it. You know what I mean about Henderson. But again, on a tangent, have him back, and he would slot straight into that centre midfield, and he grafts his arse off, so Reggie would love him.
Pretty good at Chelsea when we won 3-0. No, that was
everyone was
decent Sunday.
I'm gonna get rinsed for this on Twitter, aren't I? I didn't say
Nah,
anything else.
like I know what you mean though. Like there was certain bits like Wigan away when he set up Jan's goal and stuff like that. Look, I don't want to make a Jordan Henderson podcast. I just thought I'd bring it up. There's also the option of Samid and stuff like that. And like we might have an awful lot of players in midfield if you were to bring them in. So I understand the argument for not bringing them in because I think people have been burnt by Grant Ledbetter not really working out as well as we wanted it to, probably because he was stuck next to players that were absolutely shocking. And then you've also got the Defoe situation, which was obviously very souring for a lot of people and damaged. In some people's eyes, his legacy was something not mine, but with a lot of other people. So I understand the trepidation, but for me, yeah, look, I'd like to get promoted this season, and I think on a footballing perspective, he helps that. I still am not 100% sure I'd want to do it because of non-footballing reasons. But anyway, moving on. God, I'm much better when I'm just drunk. This isn't it. Simon Moore, double clean sheets, brilliant. What a dynamo! Keep him in 10-year contract. Riggy didn't play today, Lee, and we touched before about how the forward line, Mundell, who might just be not burnt out, but could maybe do with a 1 game rest. Roberts wasn't as good today, and Isidore either. Did we lack a bit of a creative spark because Chris Rigg wasn't playing? Have we underestimated that?
It's a good question though. The answer is obviously yes, though, because we didn't really do anything, and Chris Rigg wasn't on the pitch. He does offer you. Obviously, he is only 17. He is that good. So I'd probably say we did miss him a lot, but I wouldn't say. I don't know. I think we did. I'm going to stick with we did. We missed
Yeah.
them. We missed them a lot. And as Ross has just put in there, then I think Roberts misses him a lot. He offers that little short one pass, which then it shows Roberts isn't getting doubled up on, which is when Patrick Roberts thrives.
Brown tried to do it today.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as effective as Riggy. It's like Riggy kind of took that Ahmad role that he had, and a lot of Roberts, this is a longer conversation, but quote unquote poor form last season, which I think had more than just poor form. I think injuries, Michael Beale, whatever it may be, was something Reggie Libby's touched on a couple of weeks ago, I think, about how he's trying to run 40 yards from goal at like 5 different players. It's not that he needs someone next to him. It's just like when he's got someone next to him, it helps because Roberts becomes more effective in a one-on-one situation when he's only got 2 people to beat. And I think we missed that today. We missed Riggy's ability to like link up with other players and do certain things, which probably means that he has to come back in. I know we've discussed about resting him and stuff like that, but I suppose maybe not in the best circumstance. But today's his rest, I guess, Lee.
Yeah, I would say so. And fingers crossed he recovers well, and he is. I can't see him playing against Preston, but let's hope he's fit for Coventry. And but as I say, it shows how important he is to the team.
Important. He's so important.
I know I've seen at such a young age, but our team is young. But it just shows like he creates something out of nothing. He'll make that late run at the box where you get on the end of a cross and you'll put it in from 6 yards, and it just shows how good of a player he is when he obviously he's missing, and you can quite clearly see he's missing. Like QPR, obviously if I was a QPR fan and I got told Chris Rigg wasn't playing, I'd be going our champion, because he is that good.
He's just got such like an aura around him now because like people are, in our opinion, we feel rightly, but talking about Mr. Hottest English prospect at that age in the country, and like I'm not going to argue that whatsoever, but it does bring an aura. It brings interest from clubs like above and leagues above us. But yeah, look, for me, the team missed him today, not so much for what he does on the ball as for what he brings into the game and the fact he can get in the box and all that kind of stuff. I felt like the team didn't quite gel as well, which is, of course, a bit of a worry. But Ross, like you wanted to touch a little bit on, I think, Dan Neil, who has had a bit of stick, but the past 3 or 4 games, he's been really good. Really good.
Yeah. I think he was part of, especially when I went out of 10, how good he just organised it. He was very vocal. You could see him, especially keeping our structure, which Reggie loves it about him. and also how he just dropped into the back line. But he also nearly won us the game. You know, it's hard to forget 'cause it was the first half, that volley on the edge of the box, half an inch inside the post, we go 1-0 up. And that we're looking back, like going, oh, what a brilliant away performance that was, where we scored a goal and we marshalled them out really well. You know, it's fine margins in it, and that's why I always say it's very cliche about how you can't get too carried away and then you can't get too despondent when it doesn't go our way. But again, another shout out I want to give is Trey Hume. I actually think, right, this might sound ridiculous, but having the fear that he can't get a yellow card has made Trey Hume a better defender because he's not jumping into tackles. He's having to, in the back of his mind, he's having to think, right, I cannot be so reckless here every time I go into tackle. So the chances where a winger could get past him when he's jumping in, he's holding his ground and he's not making the mind up for the winger. And I just feel like it's probably, I'm maybe giving him a disservice here, and he is just going through a fantastic bit of form. And I know that a couple of the yellows have been for daft things, mainly dissent, and the one where he got booed for blocking the ball, where the ball was belted at him. But again, irrelevant. I just feel like he's been really good the last few weeks. And to be fair, you could speak about the whole defence, couldn't you? I know we've mentioned it, but another clean sheet, you kind of complain.
Mettman and I, and they're just like, we could do our own podcast on both of them, both phenomenal players. But I personally think that Trey's form's improved ever since he went to the kinky sex dungeon at Psychopath. He seemed to enjoy that a little bit too much, a little bit too calm for my liking, as if he was a man who knew where he was and had been there before. Not that I'm saying anything about you, Trey. I hope you had a good time.
Mind you, Jobe wasn't lying when he said someone's going to get 2-footed in a minute. So it's fair to say that he got that one spot on.
Well done, Sunderland. Coventry and Preston coming up, so we've got a couple of minutes left because I'm not paying for like premium. I know people have asked, I'm just not doing it. Not a chance. I don't care about this podcast. Why would I pay for it? Preston away, Coventry at home. Look, both teams are in decent-ish form. I know that Preston got beat today, but Ross, what is a good amount of points from that, and what's a bad amount of points from that?
Well, the bad amount of points will be 0-1.
Mm.
I'd say a good amount will be 4-6. But
It's acceptable.
again, it's one of them as well. It is acceptable. It's like, but to be fair, before the game, you would have looked at QPR and went, oh, you know what I mean, on points on table, 3 points, you know. But then the way the game went and the circumstances, you go, good point. So it's one of them where looking at it from the start, you're going, yeah, 4-6 points. But even, you know what I mean, even if you got 2 draws and the games, do you know what I mean, we're all right and we're in the balance, as long as the performance level's there and we're being consistent, I don't mind. But yeah, 4-6 points would be brilliant, wouldn't it? And if you got offered, I mean, from these 3 games, 5 points, 2 away, 1 at home. I seen a tweet saying, draw your away games, win your home games, you win the league. So
yeah, I largely agree with that. And I've also noticed if Dave's catchphrases listen and Pete's catchphrases, I live in Berlin, and mine is by the by, apparently. I think yours would be one you've just said, but I'll let other people try and work out what it would be. It's one of them. Lee, what's your points total? You've got about 30 seconds, so just shout a number at me and then I'll go something daft to end it. Like, you can win the league in January.
4.
You can win the league in January.